With the launch sequence step completed, we're now ready to move on to the media process stage. Now this is a two-step stage. The first step is to basically have some confidence that the video editor can make a MPEG-4 file to the standards. So this step is to render a project, which I call the biometric project, which you see before you, and it renders that into an MPEG-4 file. I check the MPEG-4 file to see if it conforms to the standard. If it passes this test, I'll then go to the next step, which is to render the game anime project, which you saw me load in the launch sequence, and it will then build that game anime. So let's see how the whole of this process turned out. First, the media process screen. I'll walk you through the various applications here. The first one is the CPU monitor. It's monitoring the i7, and what I'm looking forward is if it uses the hardware resources properly. Now this is a quad-core processor, 2 threads per core. Each thread is known as a logical CPU. So I'm looking for a balance across all these logical CPUs of the workload to render this product. That being said, I will also want to look at the resources consumed by the platform and by the video editor. So this is what the Process Explorer will help me do. It will tell me what resources are being consumed for this rendering part of the project or test. So moving on to the next app, which is the Executive Test Dashboard app, and here I'm looking at for any bottlenecks that might have been created and what caused that bottleneck. Plus I'll be looking at what was loading the CPU at any one time and the load on the CPU and the GPU to see if the GPU is actually being used, because the VideoStudio does have a hardware accelerator and it's going to make best use of the hardware, the GPU. And so this is going to be telling me what the GPU is using. The GPU would be the HD 4000 because VideoStudio makes best use of the Intel chip. And I'll be looking at the GPU load, and I'm interested to see how much of the load takes over from the CPU. Now let's not forget the star of the show is in fact Corel VideoStudio. So when we start the process, you have to pick a preset to start off with. So as you can see, I've picked MPEG-4 and I've got a preset. You then edit that preset. Now this dialog to me is too threadbare. It's not enough information here. The first thing is you give it a name. I do like the fact that VideoStudio use their own compressor or encoder. And I also am impressed that one of the few applications that pick the correct profile by default. Now, given this application is for beginners and newcomers and people like gamers, they might not know the MPEG standard too well, and they might not know that HD or broadcasting, which is in the case what you're doing with YouTube or on the web, you must use the high profile. It's the one suited for this standard. And it was made for this standard, so it's very good to see that. And it's a tick in a box as far as I'm concerned. Now I'm going to change the data rate to be the same used by all the other editors. I tend to pick the high 8 meg end if I'm confident that the video editor can do the job. What I didn't like about Corel is this stupid progress bar. There's no very good information that you need, like estimated time and things like that. So I didn't like that part, but I'm so pleased that it passed. It's very nice to see this, and it was very nice to see how much load the GPU took off the CPUs. It's very good to see, and the performance was very good, but you couldn't really know the exact time because of the poor information that build time gave. But it did pass. Tick in the box. Which means I can move on to do the game anime rendering. And again, as I said before, I do not like this naff progress bar that they use as a means of monitoring the progress of the rendering. What I do like is when I look at the CPU usage, the thread usage, they're not being hammered. So the HD 4000 is doing a considerable amount of load reduction on the logical CPUs. Now you have to go into the system information to see the engines, which is what I wanted to do because it's the only way to see if what engines are being used, which are basically the HD4000 engines to do this rendering process. And as you could see, when you look at the actual load usage, engine 9 and 10 are being used, engine 9 the most heaviest. It's reduce the load of the logical CPUs because the logical CPUs are only sitting between 30 and 40, where if this was a GPP or software only, they'd be between 80 and 90% and burning a lot more power and taking a lot more time. So I'm really quite impressed with Corel on this one, their own encoder, and it's doing a damn good job. This is just to show that all the threads are using the standard priority, which is priority 8 or normal. So given that in itself, you can see how efficient this is. This is HPC at its best. Most people don't realize it. If software is efficient, platform is being used properly, that's high performance computing, and that's what's being done here. Really good to see. Now, a pattern has been forming with all these video editors I have tested. All the editors that make best use of Intel library smash or blitz the game anime test considerably. They are anywhere between 2 to 3 times faster than anything that uses just software only or GPP, which stands for General Purpose Processor, or the CUDA. Now, it's no surprise to see that it passed the test, but there is a flip side to this. If you don't elect to or select in the configuration of VideoStudio to use the hardware accelerator, which in this case is basically saying let me use the i7 or i5 properly, then you get a totally different result. And that result is what you're now about to see, which is that the HRD data is not present. Now this is a very good thing here, because here you can see the container passed, but with HRD data you can tell that the buffers underflowed and overflowed, and therefore it's liable not to play back very well. An important point to Adobe and Sony here is the importance of HRD being present, because if this was a professional product and you're a freelancer, you are contracted to deliver a movie or a clip or whatever, and you find that you just went by the container being streamable for the internet, you still could have a product that won't work properly, because this one is clearly showing that the buffers overflowed and underflowed, and that means it compromises on the user experience of how well this is played back. The way to look at how important HRD is would you publish a document anywhere without having it proofread? Proofreading in the sense of video is this HRD, and a professional product should have this always present. So the long and the short of it is, if you have an up-to-date platform, it's great with hardware accelerator on. If you don't, you're liable to have a bad experience with HRD. I did get in touch with technical support. In short, and being professional, I think any company that offers a trial product and then says that technical support do not support it is gibiotic. So I feel that Corel lets itself down in this department. Otherwise, a modern platform, it's a good experience.